am your host, OMG, along with my co-host,
Silky Smooth.
And Daydream.
I think we have our wellness warrior. Are you here, Susan? Hello? I guess not. And also, we'd like to thank you for joining us today, and we ask that you please join in on the conversation, where your thoughts, your comments, and your opinions help drive the conversation. Today, we have a guest in our studio, Miss Deidra Ewing, and she will talk to us about a very important topic that goes on within our communities, and that is minority and mental health. In minority and marginalized communities, mental health is often considered a taboo or weakness, something that should be taken to God. Treatment for mental illness is spoken about in very hushed tones. An estimated 26.2% of Americans ages 18 and older, about 1 in 4 adults, are believed to be diagnosable with a mental illness. The numbers may be larger because stigma reduces reporting. Not only are these adults affected by one mental illness, 45% of these adults meet criteria for 2 or more disorders. These range from fairly common mood disorders to the much more serious anxiety and schizophrenia disorders. Among these anxiety disorders were the most common, as some 40 million American adult ages 18 and older experience some form of anxiety disorder. Despite the large number of Americans affected by such disorders, stigma surrounding mental illness is a major barrier that prevents people from seeking the mental health treatment that they need. Programs during Mental Illness Awareness Week and Mental Health Month are designed to create community awareness and discussion in an effort to put an end to stigma and advocate for treatment as well as recovery. Now, May is Mental Health Month, and its purpose is to raise awareness and have conversations such as this that we're going to have with Deidra Ewing, and to educate the public about mental illnesses, such as the 18.1% of Americans who suffer from depression, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorders. The realities of living with these conditions and strategies for attaining mental health and wellness are paramount. It also aims to draw attention to suicide, which can be precipitated by some mental illnesses, and additionally, Mental Health Awareness Month strives to reduce the negative attitudes and misconceptions that surrounds mental illnesses.
Wow, I'm blown away by those numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, and then, like you said, because of the stigma, you've got so many that are not reported, and I keep seeing that, like in homeless areas. I'm like, many of these folks, it's mental illness.
Right. Deidra Ewing is a bestseller author, entrepreneur with an online health and wellness boutique, pre-licensed real estate agent, and community philanthropist. She's a happily married mom of 2 who has helped thousands of people overcome adversity, fight statistics, generate revenue online, reach their weight loss goals, and improve their inner and outer beauty. She has coached over 700 women on how to build wealth from their smartphones, and recently became a court liaison for teens stuck in between the juvenile justice system and child protective services. Previously, Deidra worked as a family therapist for one of the largest counties in the U.S. She graduated with honors from Prairie View A&M University with a master's degree in counseling, and earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and psychology from Sam Houston State University. Eat 'em up, cats. Deidra is also a personal friend of mine. Welcome, Deidra Ewing.
Thank you so much for having me. That bio makes me seem like I'm real cool, but I'm really just super laid back.
A lot of good achievements there. So, Deidra, tell us, what does it mean to say that someone is mentally or has mental illness?
I mean, I guess you would have to ask that individual. I mean, like, of course, with my background, many people coming in and out of the agency, like there are a lot of people who come through the department whereas they're diagnosed, but there are also bazillions of people, just like my friend here just mentioned,
that are not
diagnosed. So who's to say, like, is it that person? Is it that person who says, like, hey, I'm reaching out because I have a specific need, or is it because they may have gone through the juvenile justice system or the adult system, and they've gone through a psychiatrist and someone has diagnosed them? Like, who's to say that someone actually has a disorder?
Somebody by saying the wrong
thing. Those labels. I mean,
and the other thing that people need to keep in mind is that when you're involved in the criminal justice system as a juvenile or as an adult, you're in crisis.
Yeah.
So that's not a safe diagnosis to give someone as you're shuffling them through the process and through the system. It's just like, no, that's what's going on with them at that moment, but that's not who they are outside of this.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of scary, because if you you're right. If a family's in crisis or something has happened, does that mean that I'm mentally ill? Maybe I'm acting out because of this situation, and you can destroy a person. I mean, no jobs, no opportunities, they're done.
But see, that's my question. What is the criteria which could happen to any one of us at any given time, just on a short scale, to just lose it and be mentally gone?
And that's the problem. Like, that's the problem of so many people who are walking around with misdiagnosis and the people who don't have that label yet. Like, it just depends. But most of the time, people get that stamp after they've either been in some type of crisis, after they've seen some type of psychiatrist, or they've gone into some type of counseling so that they can do some type of further diagnosis. But I mean, it's still.
Well, look around. Look around at the stories that we're hearing. Oh, they had a mental breakdown. That this out of nowhere. This person went on a shooting rampage. This and that.
Well,
Come to find out,
for everything now.
There was a breakup. The loss of a spouse. So whether it's we're broken up and we're no longer together, or you actually passed in death, that's still a grieving process that you have to go through because something has been lost. Relationships, but everyone has their own breaking point.
Right.
We all have our own way of coping, and everything else that was added into that. It just happened to be that relationship not working out is what did it for me. Or I, did a horrible job on a project in class, and after all the pressure that I already have, that failed project is what did it for me. It could be anything because we all hold so much, and we don't look for ways to cope with that. We wait until there's a problem, or someone says there's a problem, or we're in crisis to do something. We're a very reactive society instead of a proactive society.
I agree with that. You have an opinion about that?
Yeah, I do have an opinion about it, and I wish that people would be more proactive. Like, I feel like your mental health is just as important as your physical health.
That's right.
So if you're going to the gym to go take care of your body, why wouldn't you go to a professional to get your mind checked too? And most people wait until go get a physical mind check. Go for a mind check just to make sure that you're good. And a lot of people, they wait until there is a problem compared to going when you're feeling just fine. Like, why not do like the same way we go and exercise our body, but most people wait until they're overweight? Like, why don't you be proactive about your mental health, even whenever you're feeling fine? Like, that's what I wish most people would do, but they don't. They wait until it's already a problem.
I think people may not know how they're going to respond to something until something gets extreme or in crisis mode. Because I've been in some situations, but never to the tune of crossing, going all the way there. But I've been pushed, and I know, but I was able to reel myself back in. I don't know how I did that, but
That's interesting that you should say that, because I know someone who was happily married. The husband leaves her for her best friend. She has a nervous breakdown and never, ever recovers.
Are you serious?
I mean, just off the deep end, just crazy. And I'm like, that one thing, he married the best friend, they've gone on and had family, whatever.
And you're crazy.
And you're crazy.
But that's what counseling does. Like, if you just go for a pre-checkup just to make sure that you're okay, it teaches you skills to handle certain situations so that once you are put in a situation like that, you know how to respond.
Well, let's just say I arbitrarily walked into psychologist. Which one? Psychologist, psychiatrist's office?
Counselor, therapist, whatever.
Okay, so at that point, how do I go in for an oil change or just check up?
I like that terminology. I like that terminology. And it is more or less like that. Like, we take better care of our cars than we do our own selves. So, I mean, you can just literally just schedule an appointment, and whenever you get there, that therapist is going to ask you, what brought you in today? And from there, I mean, you can kind of just start that dialogue from there.
Hold that thought, Deidra. We'll be right back.
Are you a pet owner? Hi, my name is David Earth, co-owner of Earthman Last Wishes. We understand the pain of losing a beloved pet.
I know it was.
Just turn it up. So you don't get all those. Like,
I need more light on your face. I mean,
they told me to do that.
Always looks so dull. Can you do me a favor?
Mm-hmm.
This light right here, can you move it more towards her face.
I
This
look
one
like
right
I'm
here
in
at the corner.
silhouette.
Just that one right there. Just rotate it.
Yeah, because I look like I'm in
Yeah.
silhouette.
I'll wait for it to change on my screen.
It's delayed by a minute. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's on the phone. She couldn't hear you at the time. She just couldn't hear you at the time.
She's on there.
She's been on.
Can she hear us now? I mean,
No, no. 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Share, yeah.
Fif- 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
Yeah, you can share it to your.
If not, that's okay. Welcome back. You're listening to All About You with OMG and Friends as we talk about the things that you think about. Right now, we have in our studio Miss Deidra Ewing, and she is discussing with us, just the whole concept of mental illness and where it comes from, how it is, looked upon in society nowadays. And I am your host, OMG, along with my co-host,
Silky Smooth.
and Daydream.
and our guest,
Deidra Ewing.
Deidra. Thank you for coming. Okay, you were making an appointment as we went off the air. Do you remember what that was?
I do.
Oh, see, you're better than me. She knows what it is.
Now, I
I'll go off the
do.
air.
Nah, I was just saying how we were making a comparison as how people take better care of their cars than they do their
Yeah,
own
how do we go
body
for
or
a checkup?
mental health. You can literally just schedule any type of appointment.
So
any
you
type
just
of
walk in and
counselor.
say, I want to talk. Well, I have to help my girlfriend.
Well, first you're
bottom
gonna
line.
call. First, you're gonna call, so you can schedule an appointment. You're gonna want to get some type of reference, and whenever you get that appointment, like that therapist or counselor, they're gonna ask you what brought you in today. Most therapists, most counselors, they have a pre-screening that you'll fill out whenever you get there to kind of give you some background, your relationship with your mom. We call it to get to the root of the problem. So you'll give a brief description on your relationship with your family domain, and you'll talk about what brought you in that day. And if there's nothing that's specifically bothering you, you may just end up talking about what's happening right now in this moment so that you can progress towards your goals. I personally go a minimum of once a year just to kind of make sure that I know how to, because even though I have that background of therapy, I don't necessarily know how I will respond in certain types of situations. And just recently I had something, and I didn't give a thorough background, but I have a father who's homeless right now on the streets the same way that, no, don't be sorry. I mean, people have choices, and mental health is a serious issue. And I also have a brother that's out there, and he's a paranoid schizophrenic as well. But again, just like Carolyn mentioned earlier, those things don't pop up until tragedy happens. So me, for preventative care, just to make sure that I don't go crazy too, but I just go get myself checked out just as a preliminary suit to see what can potentially happen throughout this year. And it's just a track of progress.
I can see that. But what I think may sound somewhat odd is the fact that I think women have different coping skills than men. So I don't know if you have the propensity to have more men homeless than you do women, because we cope differently. We'll talk to each other. That's therapy to me. Okay? A lot of men don't necessarily do that. They'll go play ball, they'll do whatever, but they never get down to the core of what it is that they're all hanging out about. But women will do that. So do you find that there is any sort of, I guess, extreme measures that women are able to pull themselves through, and men are, somewhat more deficient and dependent?
I would think that it's just conditioned. I mean, it just depends on the person. And like, I love my girlfriends; they are amazing, but nothing negates the sincerity and the necessity to go see a professional. Why not?
Well, you know what? when I go to the medical doctor, for the annual checkup, I notice the list of questions have to do with mental health. Have you been sad about anything? Are you suffering any losses? And they're starting to get more and more specific.
In this world, how could you not?
But I'm saying that they're obviously paying attention to the mental health thing, because I guess if I answered maybe a certain way on some of those questions, they may want to speak with me or refer me out to someone. But I did appreciate, are you using any drugs? Are you drinking more than normal? Or they're just really asking. I'm like, wow, why are they asking me all these questions? I came in for a physical or something like that.
But it's on one body.
Right, so they are doing that. So obviously they are paying attention to our mental health, even though I wasn't necessarily. But now that you're saying that, maybe I will make an appointment or something.
One thing I'd like to point out that Deidra stated was, why not go to a professional? Well, this is why you absolutely should, because think about how honest you are with your girlfriends in their face, or what you want them to hear, versus what's absolutely truly going on. So yes, we have our circle that we will tell things to, and then we have an even tighter circle that we'll really get down and gritty with and tell things about. But we're still not going to be as open as, this is a complete stranger, they don't know me, so I'm not going to see you outside of this. I'm not going to be ashamed or embarrassed when I look at you to know that you know all my secrets.
And think about it, just in the same scenarios that we were mentioning with our bodies, with our cars, you can ask your cousin, hey, my check engine light is on, what do you think the problem is? But you really need to take it to a professional, right?
Or I hear clanking or something.
Well, I'm Mexican, so my cousins are professionals, so yes, for me.
Just drive, check the engine light on, just keep going.
Yeah, you can Google how to lose 10 pounds, but maybe you should go see a nutritionist and see what actually fits your body.
And think about it, we don't Google it one time, how do I lose 10 pounds? I click the one link, that's what I'm going to go with. We read articles, we talk to people, we look on Facebook, we join groups, we try this pill, we try that fad, we tried this book. So, yeah,
Now, when I was coming up, I remember everyone pretty much having someone in their family who was touched. Yes. I remember having an aunt upstairs. We didn't bother her. None of that. And then when I would go to my girlfriend's house, Pinky, she's called on the show once before, and she had somebody upstairs. It's like we didn't put our people away for whatever reason. We actually kept our people at
upstairs.
And have you ever heard that?
Yeah. And that's the problem to me. Because I'm an African American woman, I'm a black woman. Like, we depend on God to fix these things, which is there's no problem.
Did you hear when I
with
said
that.
take it to God?
Yeah.
It's taboo. It's weakness. Take it to God.
But like, God also gives us wisdom,
right?
And we tend to skip that part. So He put doctors on this earth for us to go get medical help, the same way He put counselors and therapists on here to go get help to deliver us and get over those hurdles from these crazy aunts and uncles and the addicts and stuff too.
Right? I remember that.
Maybe
the professional help.
Could that be the
I don't know.
Well, that is the other issue. That is the other issue, because not only are they cutting funding for mental health services in general, but it becomes even harder for minorities and those on a lower socioeconomic
and those state-run
level.
Facilities, you don't want your people there. You would rather have them upstairs.
But I remember I had a guy that I dated. He put his daughter in. I helped him get her in a facility, and she left. She didn't have to stay.
Because she was an adult, I assume?
Yeah, but again, what you're doing, you got your kids dragging them out in the street, you pulling knives on people, and, that sort of thing. And I think she stayed, I don't know if Edith Irby Jones is still open. It was part of Riverside Hospital years ago.
Shut down years ago.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see why that shut down. I went there on a few visitations myself, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Deidra and I know each other because we worked for the county together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we know each other. We work the mental health program. So we have experience with what it's like to go into these hospitals, into these clinics, and what services are available and what's truly not available, and what's said and what's done. So absolutely.
So what is available?
There's a lot of stuff that's out here, but you just have to fit into the box of it. Now, if you have Medicaid, and of course you're going to be open to a bazillion different services, especially like if you're in between the ages of like 3 and 18, there's this program out there, I want to say it's called Yes, and like they legit offer up to $35,000 per person to receive services, and like, but people don't know that these programs are out there. Now for adults, I mean, if you're an adult, you're gonna have to get a job and you're gonna have to pay out of pocket. Yeah,
and the sad one thing I want to say to that is the sad thing is if you're poor enough to qualify for Medicaid, you can get all those services.
Yes.
But
why is it tied to?
But if you're in the in between, like the majority of middle class America,
You're stuck.
You're stuck because you're too financially stable to get the poor program to qualify for that, but yet you're not financially stable enough to actually be able to afford the services.
You're in the attic. You're the
So
in
you
the attic. You're
is
stuck
it
in the
worth
attic.
it? If it was your car, would you just leave it sitting in
No.
the garage, or would you go take care of that problem? At least
But I
get
think
one or
years
two
ago they
services.
didn't
We'd be on the
I
phone
think
with the
years ago they
insurance
didn't know.
company yelling, ranting, and raving, why are you not doing more for me?
Yeah.
But we won't do the same thing for our medical insurance providers.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's kind of sad that we deal with it that way.
Think about it, that's one of the things we put off to the very end, the last thing we think about. Oh, I'm just gonna check off the same box I checked off last year for which insurance program I want, because I don't want to deal with it and this and that. We've all done it.
Is it ignorance? Is it because we don't see the connection, or we don't know better? Could it just be pure ignorance?
I think it's everything.
It's all of the above.
And then add to it the fact that they throw so much jargon into it that you don't want to know. They don't want us to use our insurance. They don't want to keep us healthy. And we all know who they is.
Yeah, we've talked about all of this.
Absolutely. So it's all by design.
It absolutely is.
It is all by design.
And I think a lot of the, I think the drugs now, because when I mentioned helping get someone into Edith Irby Jones, it was precipitated by something called WET. I don't know what WET is.
Yeah, formaldehyde.
Or whatever it was, she was off kilter.
That's my brother too.
Off kilter. I mean,
Yeah, all of it.
yeah.
Oh, like they smoked it with
Yeah.
or something.
They
Is
dip
that-
it in cigarette or lace.
It's like when I was in college.
PCP.
When I was
Formaldehyde.
in college, it was called angel dust when I was in college, which is what Gil Scott Heron talked about. But I don't know now, what, I guess wet is the same thing.
It's the liquid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that what it is?
It's like embalming fluid. They
Yes.
like lace it on whatever.
Well, who wants to get that high? I mean, I just don't get it. Clearly they know that there have to be some side effects from taking these, hallucinogenics and all these other drugs. Our wellness warrior, Susan. Hello?
She
I don't
can't
know
hear
where she
us.
is. Okay,
Yeah,
she
she
can't
can't
hear
hear
us,
us.
but she was on the line. She's just getting back in town. But at any rate, but can people be treated for mental illness? Is it just something that I know that the medications are expensive. I mean, $600 to $800. Who the hell can afford that?
I'm sorry. I know you're addressing that to Deidra, but
yeah,
my issue with that is that we keep allowing big pharma in because people aren't looking at both sides of it. It's not necessarily just you need medication. If you have a mental illness, you need to be medicated. No, not necessarily. You may just need counseling, coping skills. You may just have to be taught how to walk through this part in your life. That may be all that you need. It's still mental health. It just gets labeled into that stigma and let's over medicate, and that doesn't solve the problem at all.
Is it hereditary in any way?
Some of them are. Some of the diagnoses, absolutely, especially like the more intense ones, like the bipolar disorder, the schizophrenia, like sociopath.
That starts out with something smaller, I'm sure, and then it just kind of manifests itself into the schizophrenia.
I mean, sometimes, but like I know there's a lot of labels that you can't stick on kids, especially from 3 to 18. But they're showing the behaviors, and they're letting you know what they're gonna become, but you can't slap that label on them because of their age.
Yeah.
But there are a bazillion different symptoms that are out here. But just like Carolyn said, like medicine and medication isn't always
It's not the
answer.
It never is usually. It's just something that we fall back on, and you over medicate them, and then they're just vegetables. I remember my aunt used to work in a mental hospital when I was a kid, and she used to always talk about how they would fight, how strong they were, just from just being, I guess, off some kind of way, and just having adrenaline flowing and, strength and attitude and all that. But I'm curious whether or not it is hereditary, because I guess we've all had it in our family, but by the grace of God, I'm able to cope with all of my issues, and when I can't, I go find scripture. That's just my answer. Now, I tell you, I have actually been pushed to the edge of that table there, but something just kind of pulled me by my collar and pulled me off the edge, because you can let yourself go there if you are not strong mentally.
Right, and that I would like to ask where you got that from.
I don't know, but I did have some psychological testing. You guys probably do not remember. There was a psychologist here. She was on TV. Her name was Shirley Marks Brown. At any rate, I had gone to her. It was a place called Spring Shadows Glen, and they did all these tests on me and all this other stuff, and they accused me actually of trying to beat the MMPI-2 test. I guess I must have, because I don't know how you beat a test. You must know this test.
I'm familiar. I've heard of it.
Yeah, so they accused me of trying to beat the MMPI-2 test, and also I remember the judge saying that I had this uncanny ability to be resilient. I guess as a kid, when you have to protect yourself,
You should have let yourself be crazy.
and I gotta be crazy with Paul. You're on the air.
You got a check for that.
Okay, right? Hello.
Caller?
Hi. You on the air? What's your question? You have a comment?
Hi there. It's Susan. Sorry, guys.
Yay!
I
Got you on the
had a
line.
bad connection out here. First of all, hello, Deidra. I'm sorry that I am not there live with you all today. I hate that I've missed you.
Oh, it's all good. I'll have to hug you next time.
I have a question for you. And my question is, I hear a lot of things about depression and our seniors who already have dementia, and how it is accelerated by the depression. And also, the second part of my question is talking about mental illness and the nutritional factor that gets involved in helping people to heal and get better.
You just opened up a whole nother can of worms, and we're gonna need a whole
That was our
nother 2
next segment.
hours to talk about
That was our next
that.
segment, absolutely.
Now, remember, I am not licensed, or I do not practice anymore. So I want to make sure that I state that and put that out there. But I do believe that it sounds like you're asking that what the content that we're putting in our body, could it potentially cause some of these things to happen? And I do totally believe that.
I do too.
Absolutely.
If bad food can cause our bodies to shift, then surely
Imagine what it could do
it
to
can
your
cause our brain to do some things too. If that's what you're asking, I totally agree.
I do as well. Yeah. She's our wellness warrior. She keeps us on point as it relates to, again, nutrition, because unfortunately doctors know all about the anatomical aspect of medicine, but really don't know anything about nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's more important.
Absolutely.
That's prevention. That's like your chiropractor. All these, and I remember not even being able to say the word chiropractor in my house.
Wow. That's
Why?
it. Oh, that's
I
right.
was
Because
married
of
to
the
a
doctor.
surgeon.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't say chiropractor. Oh, no. He started quacking as soon as you said you call out a chiropractor's name. They were just considered quacks. But that's because they didn't know any differently. But now,
Oh, no.
but again, you couldn't, they
I
didn't.
love my chiropractor.
Yeah, we all do. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I couldn't go until he was long gone. Then it was like,
Now you're going.
get my back.
And did
neck
you
all
check the
popped.
grave and make sure he was still there before you
right.
made your appointment?
But I understand his training, and I guess that's just what it is that doctors are taught medicine. They're not taught, the nutritional side or prevention or anything like that. It's like, once you're there, here's the medication, go take this. And then when you come back the next week,
They need you to be sick.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, so they do that purposefully.
Papa Doc checked in.
Papa Doc, how are
Yes,
you?
Papa Doc.
What do you say? What do you say?
His
Good
comments.
Who gonna read that?
Good old butt whoopings is what they need. Mental health issues is just a scapegoat. Back in the day when we feared the consequences of our actions, we didn't have the issues we have today.
See, I agree
period.
with that. There's
I'm gonna agree to a
there's a part
certain
of me that
extent.
agrees with that.
And Mrs. Deidra Ewing, my mom says hello. She's watching and listening, and you remain true and beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, I somewhat believe what Doc said, because we couldn't afford to be crazy.
I kind of agree with Doc.
I mean, you got
a good old fashioned whooping never hurt anyone.
That's right.
They didn't consider us abused.
No, well, but again, the world we're in now, I don't think we can do the same things without going to engaging people in your life like CPS and police.
Exactly.
Because kids now go and tell,
and they know.
Yes.
I would have been too afraid to even do that.
That's because we live in fear, like he said.
Yep. Fear. That goes back to
kids don't have that.
Exactly.
Now, but to address it, like I do totally believe that some of them,
it's just
discipline.
But chemical imbalance, that's a whole nother ball game.
Well, I think they can make them chemically imbalanced by just giving them medication, whereas they may not need it from the beginning.
Well, here's a tip: don't go to McDonald's and order your child a medium frappe, mocha caramel frappe, and then the Go-Gurt to go with their Happy Meal. That's sugar on sugar on sugar on caffeine. Why would you do that before you send your child to school in the morning, and then you want to know why you're getting called to pick them up because they're all over the place? Come on,
they're not paying attention.
No,
they're not paying attention. But what treatment options are actually out there available once you know that you have a problem? Now, was it years ago that manic depressive was the same as bipolar? 'Cause I think I've just started hearing bipolar in the last 20 years, maybe.
I wouldn't say that they're the same thing because they can be treated in two different ways. But just to address your question, like what type of repeat it? You were asking what type
basically to see what type of physician would you go to have these medications and stuff.
I mean, if you're going to do the medication route, then you need to be seen by a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is the only person who can actually give you the prescription. But I mean, the counselor, the therapist, whatever, the LPC, they can go ahead and do the diagnosis and they can tell you what you can potentially take. But the final say comes from the psychiatrist.
But aren't we all a little off?
We are. I think we're all a little
off.
off.
We're trying to act like we're different than anybody else.
I think we're all crazy. Off. But it all goes back to the beginning, just like what Carolyn said earlier. Like, how are you going to respond in crisis? That's the determining factor. And if you're going to get skills, like you got to actually go read the Bible or any type of coping skill, then, I mean, for people who relate back to those healthy coping mechanisms, then
that's your
we
base.
turn out all right.
Absolutely.
Now with the high rate of minorities that are currently incarcerated and the revolving door that just continues, what is your stance on mental health for those, whether they're incarcerated and they're diagnosed with something, or even just to be able to be reintegrated back into society and to adapt?
I mean, we can't ignore that there is a big loophole, especially in Houston. Again, look outside and look at the number of people that are on the street, on the corners. Like, you can't ignore the fact that there is a loophole there. Is there a solution to the recidivism in the adult system? I don't really know if there is one. I would love to see something happen. I would love to be a part of that if somebody's working on it. But I think that kids, like the 10 to 17, like that population, like there's way too many services out here to help them, whether they're needing assistance with the therapeutic part, whether they need assistance with the medication, whether they're needing a support system, mentors, whatever the case is. Like, if they're still under 18, there are resources and a plethora of them out there. But after 18, it's almost as if society just kind of
washes their hands with it.
Which makes no sense. So you're an adult and the situation could be far more grave and they washed their hands of you?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, they're in the adult system, and again, I don't know to my knowledge, but I just don't think that there's something out there, especially in Houston. And if it was, we wouldn't have so many people out on the street.
Right. A lot of those organizations would be, and see, the first thing I think of is Homeboy Industries out of California, and they deal with gang members, and it's about re-getting them. You know, their slogan is jobs, not jails. So you provide them these skills, you offer them these services, and that's also a lot of mental health services that they're willing to offer to help them learn how to get back into society without being, that gang member, or how to, get away from this, that, and whatever. So but that's a nonprofit that was started by Father Boyle, and it just blew up, and it's been great and wonderful. I mean, if you ever get a chance to go visit, they have a Homegirl Cafe, and then of course Homeboy Industries themselves, but they sell their own goods that they make, you know, bakery, culinary arts, all of that good stuff. But those type of organizations are started, you know, by a small community, and we need to be more supportive of those things like that, so that way they can grow and we can expand into more communities, because that model is so great and awesome that it just makes sense to do that on a federal level and provide that for our nation.
Yeah.
You know, but
you would think we would have something, and one of them just popped in my head. There's another one. If you're listening to this and you're like seeking those type of services, there is one that's called DARS, but you actually have to have committed an offense.
So they have all this criteria that makes you takes you all the way to another level.
Right.
You know? Then they can put you in a box, and then that's the end of it at that point.
Yeah, the only way we can help you is you have
gotta
to
be
be
extreme.
this,
You have to
this,
be dire,
this,
you
and
have
this,
to
and this,
be
and
yes.
laced with this, and then we can help you.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's a lot of hurdles that you got to go through in order to receive those services. And you know, like I mentioned, how my father and my brother are both out there, and you cannot ignore the fact that some of them don't want the help either.
Right.
Like they're functioning out there. Like,
So is it convenient to be crazy?
Well, it's
I
not
mean,
so
I
much
don't know,
crazy,
that's
I don't
crazy,
think.
so I don't know.
well,
But
yeah, look at my sister. No, seriously, my sister, she's an addict. She refuses to acknowledge that she has an issue. She refuses to acknowledge that she needs some sort of therapeutic help.
Well, that's a
She's fine.
weakness.
It's everybody else who has a problem, and we all need to deal with it. It's not her.
well, think
You know?
about it.
So she doesn't want the help.
If you have to address the problem, then you have to become responsible
for yourself and your
Yeah,
actions.
where
And you gotta open
now
up
you
some
just
deep wounds.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
how many people actually want that healing? And I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm just speaking from what I know, because it's like firsthand. But everybody doesn't want the help. For some people, they're functioning like this. They're able to still function in their habits. There's no responsibility. You ain't got to pay no bills. Like, the worst part is you just got to sleep outside and possibly get robbed. Like, I mean,
How did your family feel about that situation?
You know,
I'm sure they probably reached out a couple times.
yeah, and like I still talk to them. Like I still see them, and I'll pass them some change, or I'll pick up some food. Like a lot of people
That's
think
gotta
I'm
be
cold.
hard. No, but that's gotta be hard.
But I mean, at the end of the day, this for my father, that was a functioning man. I
That's what
saw.
I'm saying. To see the deterioration,
I saw the deterioration, exactly, and it was by choice. So of course I had to go through my own
your
type of
way of
counseling.
coping and counseling.
Yeah, but like one of my coping mechanisms, just like yours, was going to the Bible to like just kind of talk to God. And whenever you have the relationship like that, you understand that this thing is already written, and you don't have no control over that. The best thing you can do is just kind of pray and let them do their thing. And if he asks for help, then I'm here. But
what is the likelihood of there having shelters and places to go to? Because my concern, I don't even see as many homeless people that as we had before Harvey. I don't even see many of them now. So I don't know.
No,
Do you really?
no.
Yeah,
I
you
do.
do. It's even
I
worse.
don't.
Where you been?
Well, you know,
And
where are you not
they're-
going anymore?
And it's,
Yeah,
it's a
everywhere.
big age range, and I'm seeing more women,
Mm-hmm.
kids, and they have pets. These folks have pets. And I'm like, how do
you barely
homeless
eating and you're
have-
taking a pet.
They've got pets,
But
and the
hold-
pets look good.
Doesn't matter. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. We gotta go to break.
You are listening to The Bridge. Share your opinion by calling 713-789.
Yeah, it's been our last 14.
Alright, so I never knew it was she wanted me to do that, but she said
Isn't that the book you were looking for? The gratitude book?
Facebook.
The gratitude book.
Yeah.
I'll take that post down.
You might. I'm taking
And
it.
I mean, I figured that, but that's what she said. I'm not saying that the thing is,
No, but I can't.
like, that's a station like that. We play commercials all the time on our videos. And that got pulled down because of commercials. But no, it's usually because somebody's music they playing. Something like an instrumental or something like that.
You know, I want to talk about that crazy chick thing.
You know, I guess I'm
Talk about what she said and what Deidra was saying, how, people don't want to be responsible, and if they're getting a check and that's convenient.
I'm pretty sure it's not commercials
Because
unless they
I
got
knew
like.
some folks, well, I mean, I
Unless they
ain't
just
never heard
got
the term
like
crazy
a
chick before,
whole something like that.
Yeah.
They get a crazy check.
Yeah, and that's what somebody had to explain to me. I said, "Why don't she get a crazy check?" And I said,
not only did we have
"What's
like
that?"
commercials, audio commercials, we had video commercials
Oh, yeah.
throughout the Facebook stream.
We saw a lot of that.
And, yeah, that's how we promoted
The
some of that
families
stuff. All right, we ready? Come back. Come back.
I have something I need to read off that somebody texted me. A story.
And we are back. You're listening to All About You with OMG and Friends. I am OMG, and I'm in the studio with Miss Deidra Ewing.
Silky smooth.
And Daydream.
And where's the Wellness Warrior? Are you there?
I am.
Okay. We miss you. We miss you. We really do. Yeah, so
Miss you all too.
you were saying something, Sophie.
We were talking about the, our guest was talking about the being responsible part, and of course being responsible means that you have to take a part in your own health, and some people find that difficult, or some people just don't want to do it. And what I have learned in dealing with people or hearing about people with mental illnesses is that they get something called a crazy check. Now, I didn't know what a crazy check was. Somebody had to explain that to me, and they said, well, you know, such and such gets a crazy check. And I said,
Oh, you
what's
mean
a
money?
crazy check?
I thought you meant check up, but you mean money.
A crazy check, yeah, meaning money. That's why I didn't understand that. They said, no, they get a check for being crazy. And I said, oh my, okay.
Wow.
So if a person, like you said, functioning in their quote unquote crazy and getting a check, then why get cured? If I have money and I can go buy my booze or my drugs, and I got a tent under the freeway over here across from Minute Maid Park, I'm good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
We have somebody text in. We were talking about, you know, the person. We always have that family member in the attic or in the back room.
Yeah.
Well, this listener texted in and stated. She said a while back she had a cousin that wasn't bathing, was calling her mom's job, saying she's being held captive, believed God delivers a message to her every morning, etc. She stated that she asked this family member, asked an aunt, why that cousin wasn't somewhere that could offer her some real help. And they stated that, well, they've been trying for the last couple of years, but medical facilities will only keep her 2 to 3 days. They just, which is just long enough to get her back on her medication. And once she's done that, then they say she's an adult and capable of making her own decisions, including checking out at any time. And just short enough of the fact that she'll get to start acting right, quote unquote, act right, that's when they give her the boot. And she pretends she doesn't know why her mom is hurting her, and the doctors accuse her mom of mental abuse.
Wow.
And she says she's in that 35, 36 age range.
It's young.
So
That's
it is
a-
young.
that's a old
And I have a very good family member who, an ex-wife had, she ended up being schizophrenic, and it came out as postpartum. So that was her trigger, the hormonal imbalance of having children. That's what triggered her breakdown. And so, of course, that means that the children are prevalent. Well, his daughter, has the same behaviors, and we assume the same diagnosis, but the same thing. Everything was fine. It didn't seem like there was an issue, and hers came out postpartum.
Wow. It says symptoms of mental health disorders vary depending on the type and the severity of the condition. And this is a list of some of the symptoms that may suggest a mental health disorder. And I'm sure you probably know most of these, Deidra. Confused thinking, long-lasting sadness or irritability, extreme highs and lows in mood, excessive fear, worry, or anxiety, social withdrawal, dramatic changes in eating or sleeping habits, stronger feelings of anger, delusions of hallucination, seeing or hearing things that are not really there, increasing inability to cope with daily problems and activities, thoughts of suicide, denial of obvious problems, many unexplained physical problems, and abuse of drugs and or alcohol. So,
And if you think about it, I mean, like when you were reading off each symptom,
that's why I said you're fully aware of every one of them. I know
yeah,
that.
we all are. We
Yeah,
all
we all
are.
are.
Anybody can be you can check off one or two of those. Almost anybody who's listening, like seriously, depending on the day, depending on the
that's true.
situation.
That's true.
So again, going all the way back to the very beginning, who's to really say that you need to go see somebody? Go be
That has to be your
proactive
personal
about
goal.
it.
For older children and preteens, they said abuse of drugs and or alcohol, inability to cope with daily problems and activities, changing in sleeping or eating habits, excessive complaints of physical problems, defying authority, skipping school, stealing, or damaging property, intense fear of gaining weight. Not sure where that comes in. Maybe talk about that. Yeah. Long-lasting negative mood, often along with poor appetite and thoughts of death, frequent outbursts of anger. So what does weight loss and weight gain and all this stuff have to do? Is it the meds or because you
Depression. I mean, is our weight loss friend still on here? Our nutritionist?
Yeah. Susan, Wellness Warrior, you still there?
You there?
I am sorry, you all were breaking up just a little bit. Repeat what you said.
We were talking about being overweight and the correlation with that and mental health. Or even weight issues, period, not even so much overweight.
You know what, it's funny that you said that because I was having a conversation with a few people who indicated that it's kind of like a catch-22. They are mentally feeling as if they're not looking their best, feeling their best, and there are other external factors that enter in, and therefore they're not taking the very best self-care, not giving themselves the self-care they deserve. But then when they do that, it also triggers them to, they're gaining weight. It's like a vicious cycle. And that just goes right back to being able to, A, do the things we need to do to take care of ourselves. But like you were saying, Deidra, recognizing when we need to reach out externally and get some professional help and be okay with that. And to not beat ourselves up, but to not let anyone else judge us into a place where we feel bad about it either.
Well, I don't know, it's kind of depressing to hear that, that this is where we are. And another question, what about LGBT? Your eyes got big, what happened?
I'm just waiting on the question.
I'm just curious, is there a separate thing for them? Because they're going through, first of all, they already have issues. Okay.
Do they have issues?
Well, that's questionable, but again, society would say yes, but they already see themselves differently. So would that encourage them to just act out or go into the drug scene and the LGBT, going into homosexuality and all these other things? So is there any and that is a minority as well. So
yeah,
that was my question.
And I don't think that you can put like a permanent stamp on any bracket of minority. The DSM has changed, and again, I no longer practice, but the DSM has changed, whereas that, I think it's no longer considered to be a mental health disorder.
Because they definitely thought that because you were gay, you had to be sick. Something had to be wrong with you.
Oh, yeah, they had shock therapy
and
all kinds of stuff.
And then when certain gay people would commit suicide or go into depression, they said, see, it's because they're gay.
Right.
They were shamed.
That's why I was wondering if there's anything specific for them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, any information on the Hispanic culture, another minority?
Well, it is, it was the same thing for us. We always had the one tío or that one tía, who was always in the back. That great aunt or uncle or in the back room, or that, you always had to go visit and be quiet in the dark room type, But I know with our community, the good thing is that with Hispanics, we're looking and reaching out and, creating nonprofits to address mental health issues and bridges so that way those services can be obtained for, a wider spread community. So we are acknowledging it more. And what they found was that, it's not even so much a cultural thing with Latinos. It really is a language barrier and the socioeconomic issue. Right. So, it's being able to afford to have those services. And then the other thing is not being comfortable because they don't have someone who can help them speak the language or who can understand them. And they found that once those services were available in an alternate language, they had a better response.
That's my population. Those are the ones I teach at high school.
So I'm glad. I know I'm more open to it. Even being, having worked with mental health, I had a really good friend of mine who had a breakdown, and she ended up voluntarily going into a facility. And at the time, you know, to this day, this is the first time I'm saying it, so I feel bad for how I responded to her when she went through that. And, you know, at the time, it's just like, that's a white people thing. What are you doing? And we're adults. We're college educated. We're adults.
Don't go there. And
you had a nasty breakup. And that's what I saw, was she's going through a nasty breakup. And then the next thing I know is that, you know, she's like, hey, this is, I had to see somebody. And when I went to go visit her, you know, the visit was great and everything. But at the end of the visit, she was just real quiet. And it was just her and I one-on-one, because we'd gone with some friends. And she, you know, was just like, so, because she knew I had something to say. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, what? And I was like, this is white people stuff. I said, what's going on? And she just got real quiet and teared up and said, well, she was like, I just couldn't do it anymore. So me not even being the compassionate friend that I should have been, all I saw was what got her there. I didn't see she's got other stuff that's been going on. And it, you know, she wasn't trying to hide it so much. It's just, you didn't want to see it because, you know, the stigma
we don't fall
of, right, the stigma of what she had. But then I see things that my niece is going through, and my first initial thought, even her as an infant, when I knew what the road ahead was going to end up looking like for her, you know, my first thought was, I hope we can find a good therapist for her, and that, you know, she can get some therapy, because by that point I knew it's going to be needed, and we all need someone to talk to and to show us how to handle things, to not continue in a cycle
and take care of our health, our mental health. Do you have anything in closing you can kind of let us go with?
I do. I mean, first, I don't want you to beat yourself up behind that, because like there is a natural stigma behind anybody going to see a therapist. Like it's almost embarrassing for most people, but like the more we talk about it, like the more common we can make it, you know, like the more accepted it'll be. So I don't want you to beat yourself up about that. And I also want to address that everybody has a breaking point. Well, what are you gonna do? What skills are you gonna take with you once you reach that breaking point?
I have reached mine. That's why I know I've been pushed to the edge before.
I haven't.
I have.
I've been very, very close to that edge.
Yeah.
And the same thing is that I saw it, but I was like,
something just, it's like, you know how you hang 10 when you're surfing? You hang 10 toes over the board and you grip?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, when I got to that point, it's like I got to the edge and I just hung 10. Because otherwise, one little move and I would have just been
right on.
Yeah,
and see, and I felt like once I make that move, there was not going to be coming back
right,
for
that's
me,
how
you know?
felt.
So I was like,
afraid to do that. Yeah. So I think the fear kind of helped me. Did you have anything for me before we can go off?
Yes. I'd like to share this with everyone. And this is for you, and also I kind of had a situation similar to yours. Never deprive someone of hope. It might be all they have.
That's true. So hopefully the proclamation that the president put out for May being the month of mental health, hopefully they'll do something about it, because it's epidemic. And
go get some professional help.
Yes, and we'll leave on that note. Go get professional help if you feel you need it. And sometimes if you don't, what the heck?
And the proactive. I like her idea about just kind of go get your checkups.
Deidra, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate
thank you.
Thank you, Deidra.
And I guess we'll see you next time on the radio.
What'd you say?
Can you start? Yeah, finish.